my relationship with my wife has the potential to create new human beings, and yours doesn't. So that is a difference.
But it's not the...
Right? That's a difference.
Wait, it's a difference, but a difference that does not determine whether or not the marriage is legitimate. Like, again, there are differences. Every marriage is different and unique. However, it is not hinging upon whether or not you have kids or even the ability to have children that determines whether or not it is a valid marriage. Everybody here, unfortunately, knows who Matt Walsh is. I like to call him Matt Walshed up because he is just insufferable. Anytime there is anything happening, you can trust Matt Walsh to be on the wrong side, okay? Back in like the ancient days when people were talking about should we do away with human sacrifice or not, Matt Walsh would have been the guy up here saying, hell no, human sacrifice is our great tradition ordained by God Almighty. Fast forward a little bit more so when we're talking about getting rid of segregation, Matt Walsh would have been up here saying, hell no, white and black people are different. You got to accept it. All right, I did a documentary where I walked all around the world and asked people, what is a black person? And guess what? Nobody could give me an answer. Therefore, black people and white people should stay segregated, okay? It is ordained from God. That's what he would say. And now, fast forward now, we have the exact same talking points, just with gay people, LGBT individuals, and whatnot. And now it's come to my attention that only a couple days ago, he posted this video. Debunking gay marriage. It can't exist. Holy shit. Guys, are you currently married? Are you currently recognized by the state as being a loving, consensual, married gay couple? Congrats, motherfucker. You've been debunked, okay? You don't exist anymore because Matt Walsh said so. All the gay couples everywhere, I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. And they just go off into nothingness. So first of all, I wanted to just look up like define marriage to make sure we're, clear on this shit. The legally or formally recognized union of two people as partners in a personal relationship. Okay. Historically, in some jurisdictions, specifically a union between a man and a woman. The true definition of marriage is commonly accepted, and encompassing definition of marriage is the following: a formal union and social and legal contract between two individuals that unites their lives legally, economically, and emotionally. So I think that that's probably pretty fair, right? That is what marriage is, by the very definition, okay? So we'll start with the semantics thing, that marriage, the way in which it is defined, completely encompasses gay marriage. 100%. So, according to the definition of marriage, gay marriage is in fact real marriage, okay? And then also, like, what is marriage throughout history? I already looked this up too. Marriage really did originate, based on our understanding, to combine families, right? To keep national relations healthy, essentially. This is why we had arranged marriages. They didn't actually exist because of the sacred commandment from God Almighty that it must be, in fact, a man and a woman. The pee-pee and the vagine must be all. No, instead it was, hey, let's fucking combine these people, all right? Because if my daughter marries your son, then we will keep our kingdoms in line, okay? And it'll help relations overall with society. It was much more about property rights. So that's how marriage used to be also. Marriage has changed, though. For a long, long time, marriage has changed. The definition of marriage has changed. It's true that for the longest time it has been between a man and a woman. But again, based on the very definition of marriage, that is not required. Finally, this is the final point before we jump into the Matt Walsh thing. There is also the 14th Amendment, which makes it so that under the Constitution, everybody who is a citizen of the United States has equal rights when it comes to specific institutions and treatment, okay? So this guarantees life and liberty for all citizens of the United States. And I would say that life and liberty, the freedom to live your life how you wish without interference from authority, that would absolutely cover the issue of marriage. Not to mention, there's also the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. The 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause requires states to practice equal protection. Equal protection forces a state to govern impartially, not draw distinctions between individuals solely on differences that are irrelevant to a legitimate governmental objective. marriage is partially recognized by the state nowadays for tax benefits and other kinds of economic benefits and recognitions, right? And so it is required by law, by the fucking Constitution, that states treat gay couples the same as they would otherwise treat straight couples. So you have the definition of marriage, which completely encapsulates gay marriage. You have the history of marriage, which demonstrates that it hasn't always been some godly thing about just one man, one woman, some sacred religious institution. And finally, you have the 14th Amendment, which guarantees gay couples the right to marriage so long as straight people are also receiving those same rights under the Equal Protection Clause. So those are the three top points right there that demonstrates that gay marriage is in fact completely valid. And even more so, people who say it isn't are actually fighting against the Constitution. They are not acting like true American patriots. In fact, they are more in line with the communist Antifas who want to do nothing but burn down our country and our great American institutions, okay? So let's go ahead and see how Matt Walsh is going to justify debunking gay marriage. Take it away, buddy boy. And please don't get too close to your microphone, okay? I'd prefer to avoid your bad breath.
Speaking, by the way, of the, I guess the front runner, the Democrat front runner, Pete Buttigieg, he had some thoughts recently. He was on State of the Union on CNN, and he had some thoughts about the Republicans who do not favor federally codifying the redefinition of marriage. Now, there are plenty of Republicans.
Now, again, see how he's doing this? Right away, this is why it's important that we read the definition at the beginning. This is not the redefinition of marriage. The semantics and technical definition of marriage completely covers gay marriage. You are lying, and in fact, it is you dipshits who want to change the definition of marriage because you want to make it so that marriage only applies to a man and a woman, when in reality, marriage can apply to other relationships besides one man and one woman.
As we saw in the House that were on board with it, but the majority still were not. And Pete Buttigieg is very offended and personally hurt by that. And here he is explaining why.
This is really, really important to a lot of people. It's certainly important to me. I started my day, as I try to do on weekends. I try to give Chasten a little bit of a break and do breakfast with both of our twins. That alone, that's no small thing, as every parent of small kids knows. It was one of those days where the tray table wasn't quite fitting into the high chair, and I'm trying to make sure that they're busy enough with their little cereal puffs to give me enough time to chop up the banana and get the formula ready. And it just, I don't know, that half hour my morning had me thinking about how much I depend on and count on my spouse every day. And our marriage deserves to be treated equally. And I don't know why this would be hard for a senator or a congressman. I don't understand how such a majority of House Republicans voted no on our marriage on as recently as Tuesday, hours after I was in a room with a lot of them talking about transportation policy, having what I thought were perfectly normal conversations with many of them on that subject, only for them to go around the corner and say that my marriage doesn't deserve to continue. If they don't want to spend a lot of time on this, they can vote yes and move on. And that would be really reassuring for a lot of families around America, including mine.
Right, and this also kind of plays into that principle of allow it unless there's a reason to restrict it, not the other way around. You don't say, well, let's think about it. Should we actually allow this? No, if anything, virtually, of course, not pedophilia, okay? Virtually, everything should be allowed until there's a reason to restrict it. It shouldn't be, well, nothing is allowed until there's a reason to grant this privilege or this right. Because, again, it is not a privilege to be treated equally in your marriage. That is a right under the Constitution.
Couple things here. First of all, this guy's such an egomaniac. I mean, they all are, but especially this guy. And it's even more grating with him because there's just no basis for his ego. Like, it has nothing to rest on, no accomplishments to rest on at all. It's like a small town mayor who runs for president, fails spectacularly, and then is given an appointment, a cabinet appointment for no reason other than the fact.
You realize you're describing yourself, Matt, is you have a ton of unjustified ego for no real reason. Literally every single fucking thing you say is factually incorrect. You spend your life whining and bitching like a little snowflake about the smallest issues, and then you get up here and act like you're some kind of big alpha top dog Chad, when in reality, you're like a sad, decrepit soy boy. You're the dude waiting in line looking like a fucking hipster for his Starbucks soy latte, okay? But you get on here with your unjustified ego thinking you're a Chad. All right, you ain't Chad, buddy. You sad.
Fact that he checks a couple of identity boxes, and so that's it. He's the transportation secretary. But he says, oh, they voted on my marriage? No, they weren't voting on your marriage, you egomaniac. That's not what the vote was. There wasn't a bill on the docket. What do you think of Pete Buttigieg's marriage? No, specifically, it's
wow. Matt Walsh is going to try to tell us that they're redefining marriage. Meanwhile, he doesn't even know how words work. Literally, do you know how words work? Chuckle fuck. You recognize when he says my marriage, he doesn't actually think that it was just about his marriage. It's about gay marriage entirely. And since he is in a gay marriage, it also applies to his marriage. What the fuck are you going to do with your big-headed, hollow ego? Try to tell us, oh, well, they're redefining marriage. Meanwhile, it doesn't even sound like you know how to follow basic sentences.
About should the federal government redefine marriage? Should we codify the redefinition of marriage on a federal level? That was the question.
It's not a redefinition of marriage. It's simply codifying a definition of marriage that also encompasses gay marriage, considering the fact that they have a right to get married via the 14th Amendment. Again, Matt, if you disagree with this, then you are the anti-American here. You are in opposition to American patriotism, my friend, okay? You are trampling over the Constitution and our freedoms that people have died for throughout history. You are doing that right now. It's not us trying to redefine anything. It's you trying to get in the way of what the literal Constitution says.
That they were answering, and some of them said no, as they should have said. And by the way, the people who answer no to that, well, there's a number of reasons why you might answer no specifically to the question of should the federal government codify. But for the people who are critics of the whole, of the redefinition of marriage on any level, they're not saying that your marriage doesn't deserve to continue. What they're saying is that your marriage can't exist because marriage is a particular thing.
How are we determining what that particular thing is? Keep in mind that when it comes to what is a woman, he goes right to the dictionary, right? He will read adult human female and say, that is what a woman is, checkmate. That's what Webster's dictionary says. There is no arguing. How dare you, you dumb lefty commie cuck. But then now when we're talking about marriage, and the literal dictionary definition of marriage is a union recognized socially and legally between two partners, it has nothing to do with a man and a woman. He's now trying to dig into the nuance and what does it really mean and how does society actually interpret this thing? Whoa, bro, whoa. He's so hypocritical, non-stop. Fuck you, Matt. And can you get to the point of debunking it? Because so far all you've done is, again, debunked that we should have any kind of faith in you to form even the most simple, coherent point.
And your relationship does not fall into that category. That's the argument. Now, I realize that's still going to offend you and make you upset, but that is the argument. And it's actually a really important distinction.
How are you coming to this distinction?
As I tried to explain last week, and as many people have attempted to explain, this is all a question of definition. And the idea for thousands of years is that marriage, by definition, is an in-principle procreative union between a man and a woman.
No, that's not, dude, it's not even procreative necessarily. This is why it's important to have an understanding that it used to be to keep relations solid with other kingdoms. That wasn't just, oh, well, we have to procreate. If that were the case again, then why wouldn't they have just married their daughter off to the nearest village man or some shit? Like, marriage has not always existed this way, one. Two, even if it did, that is irrelevant because now you are appealing to the genetics fallacy, which says just because something originated this way or the first definition of this thing was that way, that therefore it must stay this way no matter what. That is fallacious.
It serves as the foundation of the family, which serves as the foundation of human society. That was the answer. That was the definition.
Gay families can also serve for the foundation of society, especially considering the fact that they adopt at way higher rates. They also adopt disabled kids. Like, Matt, you realize that when you were a child, you had a higher likelihood of getting adopted by a gay couple, right? Because, I mean, you were obviously fucking disabled.
What it was. That's it. And then people like Pete Buttigieg came along and said, well, it's not that anymore. And then the question in response has always been, well, then what is it if it's not that? Pete Buttigieg hasn't answered that question.
It's really? Is this going to be the next thing? What is a marriage? Can anybody tell me what the definition of marriage is? Even though you have the ability to read, so I would believe. Do we want to look it up again? Do we want to type it in for you? Define marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. The legally and formally recognized union of two people as partners in a personal relationship. Ta-da. You figured it out, buddy. There you go. Wow. Whoa. I can't believe it. It's been answered. The greatest mysteries. All right here, solved by a simple Google search. God. Does that make you dumb? Yes, because you have access to Google also. What else is on your little fucking iPad right in front of you, dude? So yeah, according to what marriage is a legally recognized union of two people. So if we have a legally recognized union of two men who love each other and are committed to their relationship, then they are married by definition.
He says, well, my marriage deserves to be treated equal to other marriages. Well, but equal means the same. And is it the same?
Treated the same. It should be. Is it the same? No. No two people are the same. You absolute fucking caveman. There is no way that Matt Walsh is serious. I genuinely think it is more charitable to believe that he is intentionally fucking stupid rather than thinking that, like, because it's either he's intentionally fucking stupid or he is unironically a Neanderthal living in a goddamn cave and he just crawls out and shaves off his nasty fucking ape hair before sitting down to his camera to give a bunch of his fucking rants, and then he goes back to his cave. Like, he's either an actual caveman Neanderthal who should technically be in a zoo, kept away from general society because he is a danger, or he is intentionally stupid. I think it is the more charitable thing to believe that he is intentionally stupid. Because this is so dumb. Come on, Matt. Every single human being is different. Nobody is exactly the same, yet we still believe in the principle of equality. People should be treated equally, regardless of their differences. That's what equality means, you chuckle fuck. Similarly, gay people can be married, and straight people can be married, and yes, their marriages are different, but they should still be treated equally, especially within the state. This is not a hard concept for you to understand, okay? Maybe I should try to break it down for you. Here, Matt, see if you can understand this, okay? Do you understand that any better?
Is your relationship with Chasen, is it the same as, is it in principle, in its substance, in its function, is it the same as my relationship with my wife? And the answer
yes, it is. Because when you say function, you're trying to smuggle in, well, they can't reproduce. Okay, so what if there's a straight marriage and they can't reproduce? Are they not a real marriage then, Matt? I know you wouldn't say no, because that would make you look bad. That would contradict your conservative values, dude. They are just as real of a marriage as you and your wife are. It's irrelevant whether or not they actually reproduce. What's hinging really upon what determines the marriage is the social and legal recognition. That's why the state manages marriages.
is no, because my relationship with my wife has the potential to create new human beings, and yours doesn't. So that is a difference.
But it's not the...
Right? That's a difference.
Wait, it's a difference, but a difference that does not determine whether or not the marriage is legitimate. Like, again, there are differences. Every marriage is different and unique. However, it is not hinging upon whether or not you have kids or even the ability to have children that determines whether or not it is a valid marriage.
We can all agree. No question about it. That's a difference. Is it an important difference? Is it a definitional difference? I would say absolutely.
Where's the definition then?
Of course it is.
Where? Wait, you can't say it's a definitional difference while not showing the definition. Are you broken? Are you actually just a sad, lost, broken little man? Can you show the definition? How does it not fit definitionally? He's just talking out of his ass right now, man.
But even putting all that to the side, he says that, well, how could we talk about, they would sit and talk about transportation policy with me and then go and vote the way they did. So they can't talk about, you cannot have a productive conversation about transportation policy with someone unless they agree with your definition of marriage?
That's not what he said.
Unless they affirm.
He was just talking about how the contrast was kind of surprising when you're having a conversation with somebody and they seem to be quite respectful, and then when they vote against your rights. Like, he was just mentioning the contrast between that behavior. He wasn't saying that because you don't agree, you therefore are not allowed to vote differently. What do you... Okay, I don't even know what else to say. It's like, I don't want to be ableist and bully the challenged kid, okay?
Your relationship as a marriage, you can't talk to them about transportation policy? See, that's your problem. That's your hang up. It's not theirs. I guess for those Republicans, they figured, yeah, okay, well, I might not agree with this, but we can still talk about transportation. Why can't we? You're the one who sets down kind of the ground rules here and says, well, you have to agree with everything about my lifestyle or we can't talk about anything.
Wait, you're the one saying that you have to agree with your seriously made up definition of marriage in order for it to be considered an actual marriage. You made up a definition, Matt. You sat here and conjured up a definition that you then shat out into the toilet, sat here and then spieled it off to an audience of unironic, inbred dipshits who are dumb enough to actually take a single thing you say seriously. That's all you did. You were like, well, marriage is defined as having a functionality of having kids. Where does it say that, Matt? Where in the definition does it say that? So therefore, because gay people cannot have kids, it is not a real valid marriage. Wait, but straight people get married and they can't have kids sometimes. And like, also the definition never said that. So according to my definition, which I randomly made up, therefore, it is not a real marriage. Gay marriage debunked. Okay. Congratulations, Matt. I have a new definition of human, okay? It includes every single human being except Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, you've been debunked. You don't exist. And it's not anything personal, buddy, okay? I just don't think that you're actually human. That's all. But it's according to my definition. You know, definitionally, it says a human is every single thing that qualifies as a human being except Matt Walsh. That's what... Listen. So, definitionally, Matt Walsh is not a human, okay? And that is the reason why you need to be locked up in a zoo for the rest of your life, where we can all look at you behind glass and observe how the missing link has been disguising itself amongst general human society for so long, and even managed to get a fucking media deal with the Daily Wire.
That's your problem.
What's with the music?
That's you deciding to do that. Well, I hope you enjoy.
What is Hunter's definition of marriage? It is literally the dictionary definition of marriage, the legally or formally recognized union of two people as partners in a personal relationship. That does not include a man and a woman. It doesn't include the ability to reproduce. Historically, it didn't even have anything to do with reproduction. So, there you guys have it. If you are currently in a gay marriage, I hate to break it to you, you are now no longer married because this little cuck on the internet said so. I'm very sorry. I know that you were looking down and all of a sudden your wedding ring just like dissolved into thin air. It's because this cuckold was up here spieling off why gay marriage isn't real marriage based on his pretend definition. It's really strange too because, you know, it's usually these dumb fucks who screech about the left and the snowflakes like making up their own special definition, you know? But yet they do that all the time. He did it here. He has his own special snowflake definition of marriage, and he's just riding with that. He's just like, you know what? I'm going to make up my definition. This is what it is, and so therefore gays are bad. Checkmate, libs. Haha. I mean, this is so cringe. He is such a fucking joke. Okay, well, there you guys have it. Matt Walsh has successfully debunked gay marriage. Just kidding. He has only debunked the fact that he had even one single parent in his life that showed him adequate love. That is what you've managed to debunk this entire time, Matt Walsh. Thanks again, buddy, for giving us all brainworms and for allowing me to debunk your absolute stupid fuck ass literally within less than 30 minutes. That was pretty comforting too. Pretty nice. Nice to know that you're so dumb I don't even have to put too much thought into explaining why every single thing you say is painfully fucking stupid. So have a good rest of your day, buddy. And yeah, maybe you can go home, you know, and hang out with your wife. I know probably for you, like the definition of sex is like you ask your wife 5 times every single day and every time she says no and then gets a headache. And so that way you're having sex all the time because of your definition of sex. But okay. Either way, yeah. Fuck you, Matt. Sorry that you're not a human.